This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 382, High Value Programs.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Now, for the training program and community that I run called Hypnotic Business Systems, we have a full lifetime access library, which is more than 200 hours of video and about 24 or so individual business plans. Though we also have a very active, thriving community that's attached to it, which is kind of the introduction to this week's episode, High Value Programs. Because over in the Hypnotic Business Systems community, Bill asked this question. Hi, Jason. Can you explain what your $5,000 hypnotic transformation program is and how we might create something similar? And Bill asked this question, for the record, on Wednesday, June 22nd. I am now recording this podcast episode on Thursday, June 23rd, which of course means this episode is going to release to everybody on July 21st. So everyone else is having to wait. However, those of you inside of the Hypnotic Business Systems community, I've already shared the raw audio of this so you have the answer right away. Which, by the way, can we call something kind of fun out? There's now more than 1,200 members of this Hypnotic Business Systems program all around the world. And one of the things that is a mixture of frustration as well as delight is when people play the game of that won't work where I live. And meanwhile, here's someone recently that popped up and goes, yeah, but you're in the US and I'm in New Zealand and that won't work where I am. And I was able to pinpoint someone actually inside of Hypnotic Business Systems in New Zealand using the exact strategies that I teach, and to use financial terms, killing it. So do not play the game of that won't work where I live, because, hey, we're hypnotists. And as we set the frame for what we do and as we explain it better, that's where the general public sees the value and then comes in, which is in part my hypnosis business background. I'll give a quick reference to previous episode of this show, number 183. No, I don't have them memorized. It's already in front of me. It's an episode called The Fully Booked Hypnotist, which I will say is kind of required listening in addition to the episode I'm now sharing with you, because that's where I tell the startup story. That was actually a presentation at HypnoThoughts Live. And if you go check out that episode number 183, we'll link to it in the show notes for this week's episode. It's actually a video of a presentation I did again at HypnoThoughts Live a number of years ago, where I just kind of open up the fire hose and go, here's everything I did to get my first 200 or so clients. Now, clearly, things are in a very different place than they are now, many years later, which brings us to the question that Bill asked in the community. Can you explain what your $5,000 hypnotic transformation program is and how we might create something similar? So, as we're about to dive into this solo episode this week, understand, no, I'm not telling all of you to go off and now create your own $5,000 client package. Though for quite a number of you, you should have done that a number of years ago. Instead, I'm going to give you the thinking behind how I've appropriately raised my rates when the timing was right, how I've intentionally shifted the focus of my business in a way that's a little counterintuitive. And to quote my favorite reference from the comedian, actor, podcaster, Kevin Pollak, this is why I wrote about him nicely in my book, and he wrote a nice thing about me as a blurb in the back of Work Smart Business. As Kevin Pollak would say, if you're not creating, you're waiting. And in part, you're going to hear the story as to how I didn't wait for market viability of something that I was doing. Instead, I took the necessary required steps to create the world where that pricing would be a no-brainer. So we're going to cover quite a range of topics in this podcast episode, which is why Bill's little one-sentence question is getting an entire podcast response, as we sometimes will do. So if you need help growing your business, though, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's no need to have to invent from scratch. As we like to say now inside of Hypnotic Business Systems, guessing sucks. Here's what actually works. And it's where inside of this massive all-access program, which is not the game of membership recurring. No, it's either a single payment or a brief installment plan for lifetime access. That way it becomes a permanent asset for the continued growth of your business. It's where my backstory was going out there and doing business networking. Refining my message was really what was happening there. And that's then the content that I put into videos, and that's what eventually took my hypnosis practice around the world and let me set aside the identity of a local business of Virginia Hypnosis. And now people are working directly with Jason, and that's why we picked up everything at the peak of success and moved 1,000 miles south and shut down the business that was a local practice known around the world. Well, how do I do that? Well, the systems of how, and this hypnotic business systems used to be tell you how to do it, then it became show you how to do it, and now there's quite a number of done-for-you mechanisms inside. There was a question that just popped up on the public Work Smart Hypnosis community before I started recording, or who was it? Michael in Australia was asking about how, I talk about how I can pull off a single session high value process, but in my mind, all the sales and marketing serves as sessions before the actual session. And he's going, hey, where is that? And the answer is, it's inside of Hypnotic Business Systems. Quite a number of you probably have the sort of mini course I put out called Velvet Rope Strategy. Inside of Hypnotic Business Systems is the full step-by-step analysis, and even you get my webinar, you get the transcription so you can better make your own of what's officially called the VIP paid strategy session, which is how I actually charge a deposit to even get on a call with me. It's got a full what we call risk reversal guarantee. Hey, if the call goes as we expect it to, that becomes part of your program, or in the rare chance it's not for you, it takes me only 3 clicks of a mouse to refund your deposit. And to date, I have booked every single client who has gone through that with an asterisk, as clearly scope of practice is always going to be an issue, or the person who didn't watch the video or read the website and was trying to sign up their girlfriend to have me make her quit smoking. And I hear her in the background as I get on the call, I ain't doing this. I'm not going to have part with no hypnotist. And I'm like, dude, I am not getting involved. There's enough people out there who are looking specifically for what we do, and that's who I'm going to focus my efforts on. So I know it's a bold claim to say the VIP paid strategy session inside of Hypnotic Business Systems is 100% successful. But kind of like, who was the baseball player that hit like the 61 home runs with the asterisk? And it's because it's got the asterisk because that season had more games. So the exception is I've dismissed the scope of practice issues or the ones that clearly did not follow instructions. For the appropriate ones, 100% in running, get more like this inside of hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And so with that, let's dive directly into this topic. We're going to cover a number of things, including niching down, market authority, all inside of this week's episode. You can find the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com/382. You can join Hypnotic Business Systems at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And here we go, session number 382, high value programs. Let's kick it off with a classic. Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. And what I need you to hear from the beginning of this is, once again, something I said in the intro. This is not the episode where, Jason Linett tells everyone to charge $5,000. No. I would say for quite a number of you, you should have been doing this a bunch of years ago. And no, this is not the create the false high-ticket program so you can then sell something cheaper, because I'm consistently collecting that rate from clients. And no, it's not to create the artificially priced thing for false quality. No, not at all. So now that we have that out of the way, let me also clear away what some people would expect this to be, which is the now classic value stack, which if you want to see an example of this, and yes, let me give another sales pitch in this episode. However, it's just $27. Go to dohypnosisanywhere.com. And that was a live event. It's now an on-demand lifetime access training. It's all about how to do confident online hypnosis. It's amazing. We got a lot of great feedback. Like 800 people joined us for that so far. And yeah, it's a massive stack of value for just $27. Though, when I say the value stack, I'm referencing this so you can see an example. If you go to that page, somewhere in the middle, there's like a list of everything you're going to receive, and it does the, again, now classic marketing strategy of add it up. It's a value of like 2,000 and you get it for 27. And these are not false numbers. These are things that actually, that's the value it would have if I sold it separately, but we decided to go for a good under-promise, over-deliver on that event, and people are still raving about it months after we did it. So I referenced that to go look at that. Join it if you don't yet have it, though. And as you see it, what it actually is the way that we can stack a massive amount of value. So conventional thinking, whenever you hear me say that, realize I'm about to say here's something better. Conventional thinking would be that kind of value stack. And understand, I'm not putting it down because I just told you there's a place where you can go see me do that in real time, at least to the hypnosis community. Inside of my world, there's basically two offers, technically, for the general public. And that's specifically what this episode is about. This is not about the trainings that I do for other hypnotists or even the influence consulting program that I do, which for a number of hypnotists, they've joined over there as well, but that's mostly focused towards a larger scalable business model. Yet this is specifically client change. And at the time of when Bill asked the question, there's a presentation. It's VIP paid strategy session inside of Hypnotic Business Systems that presents either single session stop smoking for $1,200 or the Hypnotic Transformation Program for $5,000. And these are not invented numbers. I never share any numbers here to brag or boast or show off. No, not at all. It's instead that as we can appropriately change the story in the mind of the prospect along the way, that's where they see the value and that's where they decide to go further. So this is not the value stack of you're going to get all these things, because at the core of it, what I've branded as the Hypnotic Transformation Program is really 6 sessions with Jason Linett. Now, let me start with the end in mind here. And this is a phrase that, is by no means a secret, yet you can imagine this is not a phrase that's the headline of the website. Because as the business reopened originally in Virginia in November of 2009, and then came Virginia Hypnosis. Prior to that, I lived in downtown Baltimore, where again, it would have been stupid to call it Virginia Hypnosis. Though, fun fact, the part of Virginia I was mostly in was like right on the Maryland border. So like probably more than half of my clients were Maryland or Washington, D.C. But hey, the Virginia Hypnosis name worked, and I still own it because we still actually, it's a long story, pay taxes in that state, even though I'm no longer there because we own a property there. Yet I bring this up because here's the phrase I think some of you need to hear. Yes, I offer client-centered hypnosis, which is the art of matching the process to fit what the client needs. I am not the hypnotist who brands himself by a modality. And I say this because there's a growing trend of this, as here's the person who specializes in this specific protocol or that specific protocol, or perhaps, I'm a parts therapy hypnotist. I'm a regression-based hypnotist. Well, if only thing you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So in my world, it's still client-centered hypnosis. And those of you that were there with me for this Do Hypnosis Anywhere event, or even are members of the training programs like Hypnotic Workers or Work Smart Hypnosis Live, you'll see that it's all about what's in the hypnotic toolbox. Running gag from Do Hypnosis Anywhere, my nickname in college. What's in the hypnotic toolbox, and how can I adapt those tools to fit what the client needs? As soon as I stopped chasing what always seemed new in the industry, and instead, without any arrogance in this phrase, made every attempt to become world-class at a few specific things, that's when my success of my clients, the success of my process, and yes, the success of my business grew. And along the way, I started with the idea of niching down to one specific thing. And originally, I was the guy working with high schools and doing stage hypnosis programs with a motivational slant to it. And originally, I was the guy working with a lot of kids and teenagers. And that soon shifted over as I kind of grew in the business world as much as I did in the hypnosis world, where those are the majority of my clients. And I kind of looked around a number of years ago and asked myself, what are the resume points that people who speak to that business world, what do they have? TED Talk and book. And so that's why in what's the timeline of this? 2018, I did the TEDx talk in Pennsylvania, rethinkingrapport.com. The book Work Smart Business came out. I looked around and other people also had podcasts that spoke to that industry, which is where the Work Smart Hypnosis program has been running for 8 years. And Hypnotic Language Hacks. You know your business can change people's lives, but you don't yet have the right words to inspire them to take action. That program's been going out for 2 years. So I started to create the resume points of what people had in the world that I was speaking to. And several other things came to pass over time so that, there I would be speaking at some of the more well-known business events. So I had the credits, I had the resumes, the connections to people who are in that world. And back to Kevin Pollak, if you're not creating, you're waiting. I didn't sit around crossing my fingers and, I'm sorry, vision boarding, hoping one day I would get these things. No, I went out of my way to write the damn book, to write the quality text that is Work Smart Business, and hire a virtual assistant to help me replicate myself. And we crafted a whole bunch of emails as templates, and we sort of blanketed the TEDx world to finally get one. So we didn't hope and pray we got it. We made it happen. Same as, I will keep it general for now, but there are some significant awards that some people get in the business world that are just kind of the standard thing now. And, this is funny. Actually, the week that this podcast releases, I'm getting one of them, and I'm getting the other one in September. I will leave it cryptic for now. Just watch me on social media. You'll know when it happens. So I did that because when you're the person who does the thing, you're the person who does the thing. So yes, I know this is a longer answer to Bill's question about the $5,000 program, yet I wanted to land the reality. And there's only one place on a video in my client stuff that lands a phrase that is intentional, could be arrogant if taken out of context, yet in the sequence that it's delivered, it is earned. Which is, you could just work with a practitioner, and instead this is an opportunity to work with an expert. And at the time where I say that, in the specific video that's part of my sales and marketing process for my, again, clients, real people, muggles, I've earned the right to say that, and I've just given you part of the roadmap of how I've done that, which is, to the audience to whom I'm speaking, what are the resume points that then back up who that person is? Sorry, there's somewhere in one of my videos where it says, if you have any doubt about this, I would encourage you, first of all, to realize this is not something brand new that I've just come up with to sell you. No, this is something I've been doing since at least 2014 in other audiences, and do a Google search of my name and you will find a more than 10-year history of who I am, all the way back to when my hair was thicker and also when I was thicker. And it's where nowadays anybody can throw together an impressive looking website and launch it in a matter of days and look to be impressive. And I should know because I teach them how to do it. Did you hear the mic drop? No, because it's on a arm that's keeping it elevated so it doesn't shake and make noise. So I give you this as the background because my career originally was in stage hypnosis, and it's the same strategy I did there. How do I create the absolute evidence of proof that this is the person who does this? Back in those days, and I'm no longer in that, I've retired myself out of stage hypnosis. If you heard the podcast episode we did with Colin Chapman a couple of months back, he actually took over the final schools that I used to work at, including the one that I used to go to. Now I've got a good excuse. I'm 1,000 miles away and Colin's local, and they loved him. So awesome. And he pulled off the show even while they were bowling. That's a skill, Colin, that I never had. Yet with the schools, when they would reach out, I would confirm the mailing address of the school, and I would ask, hey, do you mind if we have this conversation in a couple of days? Because there's something I want to send you, because some of my best schools that I've worked with are the ones that are educated to make the best decision for themselves. And they go, all right. And I now have learned a better acronym for this. We call it BAMFAM. Book a meeting from a meeting. That's not my term, but I've heard it many different places. And it'd be Wednesday when they'd call me. And then I would ship something out the same day, and then we'd schedule a call the following week, Monday or Tuesday. Because express mail, I dropped about $25 to send next day delivery of a envelope that had about 2 pounds of paper in it. Testimonials from other schools, articles written about me, tip sheets for putting on a successful program, and it would deliver like a thud. And some of them read through every bit of it. The majority of them looked at the girthiness of that envelope and just went, yeah, this is the guy we need to work with. And I mention that because that's kind of the context that comes around to this phrase that I've hinted at, that I am now a client-centered hypnotist running a practitioner-centered business. And I know that's a phrase that's going to be new to a lot of you because I invented it. I am a client-centered hypnotist who is running a practitioner-centered business. And again, I want you to hear all of this as something that happened over time, and I've also facilitated the things to make it happen. So they are reaching this place of absolute proof that this is the person who does this. And again, this is why I keep promoting hypnotic business systems. This is why we keep adding to it. Some of you have some incredible stories that you're not telling. Some of you have some incredible case study client experiences that, yes, you can tell in a generalized way that doesn't reveal private client data. And how dare you keep that to yourself? Look at the world of what I've put out. And yes, it's how I can even be here with you in these episodes and cross-reference other episodes that I've done, even other podcast appearances I've done on other shows. And what that really does is produce this same thud quality. And again, if this is not where you are right now, let this become part of your goals. I am a client-centered hypnotist who runs a practitioner-centered business. And that was an evolution. Because at one point, there was associate staff at the Virginia Hypnosis office. And I would take the call, and I would run the 500K phone process that's inside of Hypnotic Business Systems to book it. And it was never a pull the rug out from under someone and surprise them. It was instead a very natural pivot. Here's Nicholas Pallison, who has been on this podcast a couple of times, and for a brief while worked for me at the Virginia Hypnosis office. And at the right moment, I would say, and you know what? Because it's a public speaking fear, I could work with you on that, but I've got Nicholas who's on staff here. Nicholas is somebody who temporarily left his opera career to go full-time in hypnosis and primarily works with performance artists. And because of that, I think to work with him at my office is going to be your best result. I can set you up with him on Friday at 2:00. How's that? And in that little bit of a transition with the word because, I would move every bit of rapport they had built with me over to somebody else. I eventually, in the various moves over the year, discovered that it takes the same effort to sell one thing as it does something else, which is an important point inside of this week's episode. And it's where, as Nicholas went back to the performance career, as other people kind of came and went, I kind of refocused things so that the identity of Virginia Hypnosis was going down and the identity of Jason Linett really being the brand is what officially took off and became the forefront of it. So I bring this up because these are the elements that are at play. Because by the time they then see the $5,000 price tag for what essentially is a 6-session program with a few other nuances inside of it, which I'll detail here for the value stack that is kind of inside of it, but just not presented as a value stack the way you would see it on that dohypnosisanywhere.com page. It's showing the evidence of proof. This is the person who does this. This is the person who is the industry leader. This is the person bridging the gap between hypnotic work and the business profession, ethical influence, and also it is designed to speak to that core audience. So that VIP paid strategy session kind of does tell the story of the main thing I focus on is either the stop smoking or the business confidence side of things, which occasionally someone sneaks through who's not those categories, and that's a fun phone call where I get to say, you know, based on the web tracking that we can do, I can see you watch the entire presentation that was about business or stop smoking, and yet here you are with fill in the blank other issue. So like normally this would be where like I have to sell you on the process, but instead you're an other. Why me? And when we hear the reason why, it's like, awesome, let's do this. Because those are often some of my favorite clients who kind of break through those niche down categories that I focus on. So really, to Bill's question, it's everything around the process that now supports that price. Now that we're here, you've really got the answer as to, rather than waiting for it, a couple of nuances. In addition to that, I have only ever raised my rates when my schedule was full several weeks in advance, and the mechanism to reduce the client load and also have time to build other projects, because clearly seeing hypnosis clients is not the only hypnosis thing that I do. That's where, by taking down some of those active hours, there was a period of time where I was seeing upwards of 25 to 35 clients individually, one at a time, per week. And that was a marathon. That was about 10 years ago. And there is a time I looked at my wife and said, hey, we're young now. Let me burn out early. There's also time frames where the kid was on the way, and it was hey, if I kind of work my ass off for the next 2 months, I can take 2 months off when she's born. So there's been this intentional sort of feast and famine, ebb and flow of the schedule over times. And honestly, for those that are ever in the position to hire staff, the times where I did that were also the times where I was launching projects, such as, the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast. And I needed the month to fill someone else's calendar, keep the Virginia hypnosis business running at the time, but then launch this thing that's now been running for 8 years. And I will say, creating an even bigger impact than I ever could working with clients one-to-one. And it's why I do split my time. It's why we call the training program Hypnotic Workers, because you only should learn hypnosis from someone that theoretically you could actually book an appointment with, not someone who's telling you the stories of what they did 30 years ago or jumped into training because they couldn't figure out how to run their own hypnosis business. Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. So that's been the intention as to when I ever raised the rates. So the real answer, again, to why the $5,000 price tag is everything that then surrounds that and then backs that up. I've published this online several places. The hypnotic pricing formula comes down to 3 intentions: quality of the program, confidence of the person asking for the sale, and the quality of the onboarding and sales experience that ratifies the other previous points. That's what's at play. So don't just throw the number out there because you want to get it. As I'm technically in the high ticket world over on the Influence Consulting brand, over there's a lot of people who put together a big high ticket program because they either, we just wrote this into an email and I love this phrase, they either want the high ticket sale or they need to pay off the damn Lamborghini that's in their photos that they don't actually own and they're massively in debt. I say that with the minivan parked behind me in the garage right now. So then what exactly is the $5,000 program, which I know was kind of the core of the question? And the answer is, it's actually quite flexible. In most cases, it is a 6-session program where we schedule those 6 appointments as needed as we work together. Don't you ever say to a client, by the way, we meet weekly. The moment you set a time frame, you invite them to go inside and come up with a reason why it's not going to work. Maybe you can say, well, in most cases, we put them about a week apart from each other, though as we get deeper into the program, sometimes we space them out. That way you have greater opportunities to notice the changes in your life outside of our sessions. Everybody has really flexible schedules nowadays. And even if it's the retired person, oh, I can't do every Thursday. And it becomes the game of everything's an asset. Oh, well, I actually have a vacation coming up. Should I wait and do this afterwards? Oh, no, even better. Let's do the first weight loss sessions before your vacation. That way we can get these new behaviors in motion. And that way, like you said, rather than the vacation becoming every reason why you backslid and came back heavier, you can enjoy the vacation with these new behaviors. And this way we can just sort of sharpen those changes and elevate those strategies that are more natural to you after you've had the proof you can do it on your own. And rather than, oh, I want to lose weight, but let me do it in February. Because why? Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up, then here comes the January shame, and February I'll come back around to it. No, let's use those possible hurdles as opportunities. Now, there's a few other things that I do, and there's a reason why when people hear the video presentation of what is the $5,000 client program, I do speak about it in rather general terms because, again, sometimes I get people who creep through that are not the targeted audience that the video clearly presents to. So there may be some variation. So over on the Influence for Premium Sales brand, which is a separate business than Work Smart Hypnosis, that was not designed to be the mastermind level of Hypnotic Business Systems, but many of those people have joined me over there. But we also have, personal trainers, financial advisors, dating consultants, accountants, lawyers. We have a wide mix of people over in that very different community. And it's where that's an audience. And this is helpful to know for those of you that might be a member of that group. That's part of why we actually have a large number of people in that program, but not everybody's in the interactive huddles and Facebook community associated with the Influence brand, because that's an audience that if I'm working with you as my client and you fit into that world, like I get a lot of insurance agents with call reluctance and hesitance around sales presentations responding to this offer. And with that group, I just give them the digital part of Influence, but they don't get the interactive components because they're working with me. For other people, here's someone I recently worked with for weight loss, and it wasn't logical to give them the sales and marketing training that is what's over on the Influence brand. And instead, we expanded to go, well, in addition to the 6 appointments, you get unlimited, reasonable access to me on this app called Voxer. It's a walkie-talkie app. The benefit of it is it's not text message, it's not Facebook Messenger. So because it's its own island, that's a place where if you ever have any questions, if you need to kind of rethink your strategies, send me a quick walkie-talkie message and I will respond to you. And again, the magic phrase when I offer that, it's unlimited, reasonable access. And somehow that phrase has not yet come back to bite me because people will make the best intentions. And, this is also where I'm getting into a hybrid approach with people. And they sometimes might be getting curated training materials out of either the Influence brand or even stuff that's inside of Hypnotic Workers. And a lot of my clients are, again, people who are business people, and we might end up doing one of our appointments not necessarily around hypnosis, but instead by refining their sales and marketing strategy, their copywriting principles, and crafting their stories in brand new ways. And yet still, as we're doing that story hacking with them in that world, that's then ratifying the hypnotic changes that they've already put in place. So what's inside of the $5,000 program? Well, it's a little intentionally vague on the website, which is when you see what VIP paid strategy is inside of Hypnotic Business Systems, that's where it's this, hear me out, intentionally long webinar. I've made it longer on purpose because I want the diehards getting to me, which then they hear the presentation of it's either the $1,200 for the smoking or the $5,000 for the hypnotic transformation program. Here's a brief overview, intentional words, here's the brief overview of what that is. And because this is a process that begins with you and everything I do is customized, that's why I'm not going to ask you to sign up for either of those programs right now. Instead, there's a button down below to simply pay a $200 deposit to schedule a call with me. And that's a deposit, which is refundable. You already know the pricing, you already know the options, so there's no surprises. There's not going to be a high-pressure sales pitch. Instead, credit Michael DeShalit, the end of the meeting is me simply explaining what we can do together and asking you, so what do you want to do? And either at that point, your deposit that you'll have already paid becomes a, payment towards your program, or in the rare chance it's not for you, it takes me a couple of clicks, I will refund that deposit in full. So because of that, I'm not going for the sale of the full thing from what really is an automated webinar presentation. And those of you, again, inside of Hypnotic Business Systems have the full transcript of it. You'll see exactly the language patterns of how I do it and why I do it as I break down the psychology of it. Yet I present the bigger numbers and then I drop it down to go, but just pay this deposit to get on a call with me. And again, we have a very high rate, near 100%, minus the asterisks that I mentioned here before. But that's where I get to then engage directly with my client in my world. and this kind of goes to the question I mentioned that Michael had asked in the public Work Smart Hypnosis group. In my world, that 45-minute phone consult is actually the first session in my head. So they're actually getting probably a 7-session program, but I'm pummeling them with conversational hypnosis and covert change strategies inside of that session. So they're already telling themselves the story of success. And then what's inside of the program? Well, that's where it does get a little bit flexible for the majority of my clients, people who are involved in a sales scenario who have blocks in their way. That's where typically that's the group of people that I'm doing traditional change work, but then I'm also giving them the digital only access to the library over on the Influence brand, which makes it so, hey, between now and when we meet next, go in and run this specific technique several times and go look at this content strategy. You're the insurance agent doing the steak dinner circuit, as they lovingly call it, and presenting what you do. But now change the story based on this formula and, write a draft of that between now and when we meet next. So they're kind of getting hypnotherapeutic change work as well as hypnotic influence-based business consulting as we work together, because I found that the confidence wasn't the only thing that needed to be adjusted. The confidence also increased once we changed the emotional story, and their sales and marketing became much more dialed in, and they knew the how and the why. Now, I know this has been a bit of a drink from the fire hose episode. And do not take this to go, oh, great, now I got to go write a book. Now I got to go do a TED Talk. Well, you might. What I'd say is step back. Who is the specific audience you wish to speak to? Who's the audience you wish to target? And take a look around. What are the assets that the known gurus in that world have? And realize those people had to sit down one day and apply for the talk at whatever convention for the first time. Those people had to sit down at the blank screen of death and write the first sentence that then became their book. We all start somewhere. And you also need to ask yourself, what is the amount of money that this audience is used to investing in what they do? And indeed, most high-ticket consulting programs are right around that $5,000 price range, which is why my transformation program, which mostly targets that audience, is priced in the same way. I want you to hear this final thing that I'm talking about and let go of any negativity or judgment around it, because I've heard even Anthony Gailey say this around like his corporate speaker masterclass that he does. That's an audience that won't take you seriously unless your prices start at a specific point. And everything is relative. It's why I don't like the phrase high ticket, because I've got a friend who teaches people how to create jewelry and sell it on Etsy. And the fact that she sells that to that audience for like $250, that's high ticket for them. They've never spent money on a course that size before. So there's a lot of answers to the question, Bill, I hope you're realizing, which is, what's the world you create around it? What are the ways you can then establish the full proof of value along the way? And it's where my people land on a website, which then is just a thud of news articles about me, testimonials about me, case stories about me, further videos. And again, I would say not everybody should start here. I would say most of you listening to this could have actually done what I've done many years ago. And it's that phrase again of a practitioner-centered hypnotist, a client-centered hypnotist who offers practitioner-centered business. I butchered that. Hey, podcast editors, leave that in so people can hear that it's not always polished. I offer client-centered hypnosis inside of a practitioner-centered business. So I'm the unicorn. I'm the boutique provider. I'm in the expert role. And are you there right now? Well, some of you may already be, but you're not yet telling yourself that story. You're not yet telling that story appropriately to your clients. And we're going to begin this session the same way we're going to end it now, with the classic line from Kevin Pollak: if you're not creating, you're waiting. Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, and I want to hear your feedback on this one. So do me a favor, after you've heard this, pop an email over to me, jason@worksmarthypnosis.com, or hey, become one of my best friends on Facebook if you're also over there, and let me know your thoughts on this. I will say in these final comments, if there's anything I said that may have caused some offense, I would ask you internally, is it because of something I've said, or is it because of a story that you're telling yourself as to why you're presenting the idea that you're not good enough, that you can't do this? And it's not to say I'm better. No, never. I will throw myself under the bus before anyone else does. For all of us, whatever a troll says on the web, oh, stay down. I've said worse. And, I do use the frame, though, of a positive fascination around negative language. And where I was at a conference recently and someone asked me, well, what do you do for self-hypnosis? And I'm like, well, there's a process I teach that I used religiously, but now having been around so many people who created rapid change, it just kind of trained the muscle to let go of stuff a whole lot faster and move into solution. Like to the point, sometimes it's too fast, and that could be another issue, apparently. Help. No. So what I'd say is you have two options inside of a dialogue like this one. You can choose to be offended, or you can choose to be inspired. And even so, if the reasons and ways that I've done it doesn't align with you, fantastic. Change it, make it better for yourself. Which is why, at one point, I had 3 other hypnotists in the same office park that my office was, who were also my students and also members of Hypnotic Business Systems, and were using my strategies on their websites in the same office park. And this is part of the background behind the phrase you've heard me say, the more we're all successful, the more we're all successful, because they were different people. We offer client-centered hypnosis inside of a practitioner-centered business, and you might have worked with Jonathan, you might have worked with Diane because you aligned better with something that they said, or you didn't align with what I said, or they put another specialty out in front of them. So Hypnotic Business Systems is clearly not meant to be, here's how you become a clone of Jason Linett. There's already one of me, and there's already enough of me on the internet. I know. Instead, it's about helping you create your own voice, find your own unique selling opportunity, find your own unique brand, and position yourself as the most obvious choice in that world. You can continue to be the commodity and be the best kept secret and fool yourself into oblivion by, not filling your calendar. Yet the real measure of success is those people who are willing to go further with you and work with you professionally. And again, guessing sucks. Let's help you to get there even faster. Join us now at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at worksmarthypnosis.com.